Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar, specifically looking into embedding sustainability in schools. It's about why it matters and about how we can hit key compliance milestones. The Department of Education has made it very clear that schools should have a climate action plan, a sustainability lead, and a pathway to net zero by 2050. This is really shifting from guidance into deliverability and accountability, and schools that are not prepared risk falling behind very quickly. The real benefit is that good sustainability work also helps school reduce energy spend, improve building efficiency, and plan your capital works more effectively. Done properly, it's as much a financial decision as it is an environmental one. And I'm very pleased to have two speakers with me today here to share insight, actionable steps, and the journeys that you can take towards these goals. Let me first introduce Astrid Demelio. Astrid is the head of sustainability at Outcomes First Group, where she leads the delivery of their net zero strategy across more than 150 education sites. Bringing over a decade of experience embedding sustainability into operations, Astrid is our Rosetta Stone, here to translate sustainability, ambition and strategy into practical action. We also have back with us Jamie Craddock, a sustainability specialist and environmental consultant here at Greenmark, holding a distinction in environmental engineering. He has taken large global and portfolio clients in both public and private sector along on their sustainability journey. He and his team specialize in helping organizations understand their environmental impact, break down those complex requirements and turn them into clear, manageable actions that can be implemented across day-to-day operations. I'm really, really happy to have you both with us. Thank you for taking the time to share some of your knowledge with all of us here. I'm now going to hand over, stop talking, and let Astrid and Jamie take over. Thank you. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here presenting and talking to you all today. First off, I mean, sustainability has become a core part of how UK schools operate, teach and plan for the future. Several aspects of sustainable development really make it essential rather than optional. And to kick off this webinar, I'd actually like to share first with you a couple of questions that understand, so that we can understand exactly what sustainability means to each and every one of you. And we're excited to explore that today with you guys. So the first one, if you can answer the poll that comes up onto your screen, and then we're going to explore some of those responses as well. So yeah, what does sustainability mean to you? And while we're waiting for some of those responses to filter in, Astrid, how do you explain sustainability to staff and students in a way that feels relevant?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. So I think the main point is to really make sustainability feel practical rather than abstract. I would say for staff and students, it's about connecting it to the everyday reality of school life, the energy we use, the ways we create, the way we travel, what we buy, and the kind of environments that we want to create for learning and well-being. And I also think it's important to link sustainability to purpose. In education, it is not just about reducing our environmental impact, but it's about helping create those healthier and more responsible environments and giving young people the opportunity to engage with those real world challenges in a meaningful way. I think once people can see how it connects to their own role or experience, it becomes much more relevant.
That's great, and it's exciting to see some of these answers filter in, and we'll give it just a minute or so until we get the rest of the responses. But while we're waiting for those final few answers to come on in, Astrid, one more. What helps you to build a culture where sustainable choices really become the norm?
I would say it really comes down to consistency, visibility, and I would say local ownership as well. For example, at OFG, we operate a across a very large and diverse group of schools. And I think sustainability only works when it becomes part of that day-to-day practice rather than something that maybe just sits centrally. And I think that giving schools that clear framework, but also the flexibility to adapt it to their own setting is really important. And I think that encouraging that site level action also makes a big difference, because again, it creates that ownership right rather than relying on central direction. And I think visibility is also key. When schools would see that those practical changes happening, whether that's around energy, waste, or even the learning environment, it sort of like helps normalize those behaviors. And I think the final point will be leadership. It really matters when school leaders reinforce that sustainability is part of how we operate and not really an add-on. It really helps embed it much more naturally into the culture.
It's really interesting that those points were sort of highlighted. I think that, yeah, from our experience in Greenmark and all the different organizations that we work with, both public and private sector, that flexibility and support comment, I think that really resonates. And we see that, not only with just SMEs with a few employees, but we do see that, as you've said, with organizations such as yourselves with hundreds of over 100 sites even in the UK. So yeah, it's really exciting to see that's actually quite relevant. And what we see in SMEs also is replicated in some of the larger organizations as well. So I just wanted to, I don't know if you guys can see on your screen, so you should be able to hopefully see a couple of different things. So right now, what I've got on the slide deck, this is a couple of example submissions that we've had from a slightly different scope of responses, but similarly from a group of educational professionals. So some of the sort of crossover that we can see here that we've noted in the responses from today, we've got obviously environment is a really big, a pretty common theme. Environmental impacts. I think that's a really important thing to unpack as well. Understanding what the impact exactly is of your location, I think is a really important thing. But it's nice to see that carbon emissions are included, but it's also important, I think, and we're going to explore in just a second exactly what sustainability means more holistically. So it's not just about that driving down carbon emissions, but it's also thinking a little bit broader at the entirety of sustainability. Astrid, is there anything that you've noted from the responses in the poll today that particularly jumps out to you?
Yes, I think I agree with you, Jamie. The natural aspect will always be to sort of like interlink sustainability with the environmental side of things, whereas the reality is that it encompasses a much broader range of topics and it really impacts holistically across organizations. But I'm sure you'll touch upon those points in a few seconds, so I don't want to be the spoiler alert here. But indeed, it's very common to see that it does really directly come into mind as an environmental point.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, to sort of follow on from that one, yeah, I'd like to answer that question fully. So to sort of share exactly what sustainability is and why it matters. So as we've just said, some people do think that sustainability means driving down carbon and reducing your environmental impact, which again, it's incredibly important, but it's not that whole picture. The definition from the Brundtland report. So this is a UN report, Our Common Future. It was named after the chair of the World Commission at the time on environmental and development. So that's Gro Harlem Brundtland. She herself was actually a trailblazing Norwegian physicist. She was Norway's first female prime minister, and she led global efforts on sustainable development. She then followed on and served as Director General for the World Health Organization. So, and she was instrumental in shaping international health and climate policy. So this Brundtland report, it broadly stated that sustainability was all about meeting the needs of today without compromising the needs of tomorrow. So emphasizing not only environmental protection, but also considering both economic growth and social equity as well. They're not competing goals, they're interconnecting pillars of a healthy and just global society. So this report itself was a real wake-up call, and it urged nations to recognise shared responsibility, such as poverty, climate change, resource depletion, and it really called for long-term thinking, cross-border cooperation, and policies that integrate environmental concerns in every sector. So energy, agriculture, across industry, all public and private sector bodies. You see your name on that document, you're included, and everyone's included. So yeah, more than 3 decades later, the Brundtland Report itself, it does remain that cornerstone of sustainability, and it reminds us that the choices that we make today really shape the world that our children are going to inherit tomorrow. The UN's identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals that outline 3 key areas of focus that need to be integrated. Kind of touched on them already: environmental health, social equity, and economic prosperity. Looking initially at environmental health, so protecting ecosystems and reducing carbon emissions, goals 13, 14, and 15, they're the sort of key ones that we're looking to explore with environmental health. It doesn't only safeguard biodiversity, but of course it improves public health and resilience against natural disasters. So it touches a little bit on the broader social aspect too. On the social side of things, the SDGs promote inclusive education, gender equality, and access to clean water and sanitation. That's ensuring no one's left behind. And then finally, economically, they look to encourage innovation, sustainable development, and of course, decent work for all, with estimated studies actually showing that implementing and achieving these SDGs could unlock 12 trillion US dollars in the market opportunity by 2030. So closing in on that, and hopefully we can all share a little bit of that to improve all of our operations as well. We recognise that the education sector itself, as a large emitter, it's got lots of opportunities for driving down carbon, even though it's a slightly smaller portion of the UK pie, for example, but it does have pretty significant opportunities to drive down carbon produced. Sustainability itself has moved into the forefront of many decision makers' minds in the last decade, and legislation itself has slowly been filtering its way into both public and private education sectors. And of course, there's a cultural shift as well that we've experienced. This report that I've got on screen shows that a student Organisation for Sustainability survey in 23-24 states that 88% of students agree that their place of study should actively incorporate and promote sustainable development. We've already seen a huge uptick in awareness about sustainability within schools, nurseries, colleges, universities, and of course with the government mandating aspects of sustainability, this has really helped education bodies to do their part in that journey to net zero. So taking control and understanding your emissions really is that first step towards driving down your footprint. And as you can see, once you've got that first understanding, that measurement of your carbon footprint, once you've got that baseline, it really helps you to understand what your impact areas are and how you can actually drive down your emissions as well. And of course, with everything going on today in the world, lower emissions, lower energy usage really reflects in a much cheaper energy bill as well, which is absolutely essential. So an interesting outlook from this policy paper, Sustainability and Climate Change, a Strategy for Education and the Children's Services System, and that's something from the Department for Education, has identified, schools and universities do represent that 36% of total UK emissions. So even though it is that smaller slice, it's really important that we are, as a larger public sector estate, we've got to do our bit to drive down the impact as well. We're a major consumer of gas heating in the UK as well, so specifically on these public sector estates. So that journey that we can look to do to decarbonise a lot of our energy that we're using in buildings is going to be a really key step to driving down our carbon footprint as well. And of course, the education sector is a sector with high visibility and influence over societal behaviour as well. We can really look to help those future generations have that understanding of sustainability and improve our overall environmental impact as well. And of course, students themselves, they overwhelmingly expect climate action to be at the forefront of decisions made across the sector as well. So that's a little bit of background on sustainability and kind of where we sit in terms of compliance in the broader sector. I kind of want to just quickly follow on with a second question. So how confident are you that your school understands its sustainability obligations? You should see on screen popping up shortly a quick poll that you can actually look to give us a 1 to 5 score based on your understanding and how confident you are that you understand your obligations. Yeah, I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into compliance, and of course that's going to be the next step as well. Feel free to answer as honestly as you can. We're going to ensure that all these responses, of course, are anonymized. It's purely to help us to understand where you guys can, where you fit in, and you know how we can help you to achieve your compliance needs. So just while we're waiting, Astrid, how can leaders make compliance feel supportive rather than restrictive?
That's a really good question, Jamie. I think compliance works best when it's positioned as something that enables good decision making. And that means making expectations clear, maybe proportionate and practical. I feel that people are much more likely to engage positively when they understand why something matters, whether that's reducing risks, meeting obligations, or even making sure that we're acting responsibly. It also helps when compliance is linked to support and guidance rather than that control element. If colleagues feel that they can ask questions, get advice early, and understand really what good looks like, compliance becomes much more about confidence and consistency rather than restriction. All comes down to when people understand the why. I would say compliance feels much more like an enabler rather than restriction. It's if people understand the purpose and feel supported to get it right, compliance will feel much more enabling rather than restrictive.
That why I think is so important, and obviously we've kind of given a little bit of context, hopefully on that sustainability point as a broader comment on sustainability as a whole in general. But it's great that we've kind of identified two key areas. So understanding why, so we want to make sure that we're sharing information about why sustainability is important across the board for all of our education needs. That's both in curriculum, of course, and sharing to staff and wider communities, but also that guidance piece I think is incredibly important as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing those insights. Just while we're waiting for those final comments, Astrid, what are some basic checks that you think should be done before working with some external partners? So obviously this is very much focused so far. We've thought about our impact and looking a little bit closer at our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, so the direct impact that we have on our site. Thinking a little bit broader, scope 3 is a little bit of a scary term, so let's just look at what do we think about what do we think are some of the basic checks that should be done with working with some external partners.
The elephant in the room, scope 3, indeed. So I would definitely say that the first step is making sure that there's good alignment on values and expectations. And then that means understanding, whether a partner's approach is consistent with your organization standards. I think it's also important to review any relevant policies, understand any potential risks, and be very clear about what you expect from the relationship from the outset. From a sustainability perspective, I think it's also useful to ask whether a partner is helping support your wider objectives rather than working against them. And even simple checks at the start can make a big difference in building the right partnership. So also always about understanding if you could bring them on your journey. And I think that element is super important to ensure that you're all working together towards the same goal, because you will get to a point where you've clearly stated, again, scope 3, the elephant in the room, it's very challenging. And when you don't have the right partners on board and the ability to bring them on the journey with you to support you to get to your final goal, it's going to be very challenging. So it's always about nurturing those relationships from the outset, what will guarantee that success, I would say, from any program that you embed towards addressing.
Thank you. And yeah, again, it's really nice to have these insights. I think the for me, my key takeaway is that organizational standards, it doesn't have to necessarily be a massive ask that you get your entire supply chain to comply immediately, or any partners that you have. It's taking that first step, doing a quick check. Do they have an environmental policy? Have they got any sort of considerations? And then if they don't, can we bring them on that journey with us? I really like that comment. And if there's a different message or another message, obviously feel free to jump in there, Astrid.
No, indeed, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So yeah.
Perfect. So I don't know if you guys can see, but hopefully you should be able to. In terms of the responses that we've actually got quite a lot that have answered on the lower end. So 33% of respondents have popped in the number one, which was talking about, you're not as confident in terms of understanding obligations. So hopefully the next couple of slides, I'll try not to bore you too much with sustainability obligations and requirements in the sector. And I'll try and give you some top line informative information. This slide deck, as we sort of mentioned before, we're going to look to share that with you guys as well afterwards. This recording is also going to be online, so you can come back to it and refer to your specific organization's sustainability requirements and obligations as well. So bringing it back to that question, why does sustainability matter in education? Of course, sustainability has become a core part of how UK schools operate, teach and plan for the future. There's a few different aspects that make it essential rather than optional. So schools are influencing future generations. We've touched on that before, but the Department for Education have emphasised that sustainable leadership and climate action planning are now integral in education settings. Obviously, the education sector itself has a pretty large footprint. Energy, waste, transport, rising energy costs, of course, and resource pressure means that sustainable practices really directly reduce operational expenses as well. Sustainability initiatives themselves strengthen community engagement and demonstrate leadership beyond just the classroom. So stronger sustainability initiatives themselves not only improve that community engagement, it is essential to improving well-being as well for staff and students as well. UK policy increasingly expects, of course, schools to act on climate change and environmental issues. So obviously we've got that wider net zero ambition for 2050, and that's essential as well. Astrid, what do you think is the most important message going forward in terms of sort of this sustainability piece in education today?
I think there's two elements of it, right? It's the broader impact of the operations of school settings, and also the educational element of embedding sustainability into all the learning part of it,
Absolutely.
to ensure, I think, the future generations are prepared to enter upcoming job markets that are sort of like moving towards that transformation of the economy, where are we going to be in the next decade or so. So I think, yeah, those two elements will be the most important ones.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then again, it's essentially looking at these top line areas. I think, operational financial resilience, we've mentioned that a couple of times already today. We've got a real struggle with energy crisis at the moment, so we're going to have to have a big focus on that, as well as, of course, supporting the future generations as well. So yeah, thank you for that one. Next, I kind of want to touch a little bit more on those key compliance requirements. So this is all about building and maintaining your climate action plan as well. So a couple of key frameworks influencing the education sector. Some primary requirements, so something that everyone's in scope for: sustainability and climate change strategy for the Department for Education. So this slide outlines some of the DfE requirements. Obviously, we've got 6 points on here, which I'll touch on in a little bit more detail. The second point is the net zero target, so UK's 2050 national targets. And then the third key area for compliance as well, it's all about, a duty of care for waste regulations. So we've got the simpler recycling that's come in 2025. That's the most recent adaptation that we've seen in terms of waste regulations. So net zero by 2050, that's our core overall targets. Waste regulations make sure that we're tracking all aspects of our waste, where where humanly possible. And then, of course, these 6 points as well, that's the Department for Education key requirements. Some education bodies also have the SECR, so Streamline Energy and Carbon Reporting. So typically it's an academy trust that meets this threshold, and then similarly ESOS, the Energy Saving Opportunity Scheme, both larger organizations. If you're unsure about whether or not these are in scope for you, please do let us know, and we can look to help you guys with aligning with some of your requirements as well. Looking a little bit closer at the Department for Education Climate Action Plan, what actually is it? So it's a framework document for measuring, tracking, and reducing your greenhouse gas emissions and adopting climate adaptation measures. These documents are typically used as a framework to guide administrative bodies in addressing the impact of climate change in your community. So climate action plans typically include targets for reducing your greenhouse gas emissions and then detailed steps and tracking to achieve those targets as well. It will give your school education sector location. So if you're a school, if you're an academic trust, if you're a nursery, it gives you a roadmap to reduce your impact and meet those UK sustainability expectations, for not only the resilience for students, but it's also the wider community as well. A sustainability lead, so each education setting must appoint a nominated sustainability lead. So if that's going to be your head teacher, if that's going to be someone who is a passionate environmental specialist, we'll say, at that particular location, they're the ones that are going to have to be responsible for coordinating sustainability efforts and overseeing the climate action plan if that's just one location. If you've got a climate action plan for your entire organization, you need to make sure to have sustainability leads at each of your sites as well. The third point is that whole setting approach. So schools themselves are expected to adopt a whole school sustainability strategy, and that integrates leadership, operations, teaching, and community engagement. And this is just what Astrid mentioned before about making sure that we're taking everyone on that journey with us. Next, of course, it's aligning with the Department for Education Sustainability and Climate Change strategy. So that's making sure that we're developing climate resilience within our location itself, improving carbon literacy and environmental stewardship. That's tied in very closely with both the sustainability lead and the whole setting approach. If you've got someone that's a lead at that particular site, they're going to be the ones that are building on their knowledge of sustainability and helping to share that amongst the rest of the school. It's important, of course, that we've got compliance across all education settings. So these requirements apply to not only earlier schools, but it does apply to multi-academy trusts, colleges, and universities as well. I've put this final point in here. So PPN 006 and Scope 3. Some of you guys, it's not going to be super relevant for, but large multi-academy trusts, MATs, they increasingly are going to have to adopt PPN 006 aligned procurement standards. That's for capital projects, estate services, and multi-year contracts. This is very much an understanding piece, building out your awareness of your broader impact. This one here, as I mentioned before, please get in touch with us if you think that this applies to you. So we introduced climate action plans initially as that framework document for measuring, tracking, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adopting climate adaptation measures. It's important, of course, for climate action plans to outline actions across all aspects of your environmental impacts. That's your buildings, your energy, your waste, travel, procurement, and also, of course, your curriculum. There's a few different impact areas relating to a climate action plan. So if it's initially looking at smaller scale schools and nurseries, that's looking at the suppliers. So any company that's providing goods or services, ICT providers, catering companies, etc., you may need to be compliant within your carbon reduction plan to win certain contracts. So if you've got a large multi-academy trust, it's important to make sure that if you're in scope, if you've got the aspects of your carbon reduction plan that say, no, what we need to have within our supply chain, they need to have a carbon reduction plan, they need to disclose their emissions. It's essential that you guys get that information from your suppliers as well. The second side of things I've mentioned before, it's all about aligning with your PPN 006. I won't touch on this too much. As I mentioned before, this is much larger scale organizations. So if you think this is relevant, it's making sure that we're aligning with national and net zero expectations as well. So the outcome for a practical evidence-based roadmap, it really helps the schools themselves to cut down emissions and save money, of course, as well as meet the UK sustainability expectations. There's a few steps on your screen that you can see about how to develop and maintain your carbon action plan. So number one, it's all about establishing a baseline and identifying major emission sources. So measure the current electricity, gas, water, waste, and if you're able to, the travel emissions that you have using UK government conversion factors. If you don't have the ability to do that, please get in touch with us and we'd be very happy to help you guys to develop that as well. But the important things are looking at your electricity, looking at your gas, looking at the direct impact that you guys have at your location. And if you've got a fleet of vehicles, that's also included as part of that assessment as well, looking at your scope 1 and scope 2 targets. Typically, main emission sources are energy use, heating, waste, procurement and transports, but that's the sort of top line things that you will want to be looking at. Second point, set your clear targets. So that's short term, 1 to 3 years, and then longer term targets. That's aligning with the UK net zero 2050 target as well. Third point, develop actionable measures. So what we need to do is not only identify actions, so energy efficiency upgrades, for example, but we also need to assign roles and responsibilities for these actions themselves. So if we're doing energy efficiency upgrades, that's something that the head of estates would probably be in charge of. If we're looking at a behavioural change campaign, that's something that we want our sustainability lead on site to really drive forward so that they can not only improve the awareness of staff, but they can help all the students as well. And then, of course, sustainable procurement, waste reduction, biodiversity improvements, they're just a few additional actions as well. Monitor and report progress. So track your kilowatt hours, waste volumes, CO2 reductions annually, and then report this to the wider school community and to any sort of governors as well. So that's based the sort of next step after setting your targets. You not only have to monitor and you have to report on that progress. And once we're reporting on the progress, that final step, of course, is all about reviewing and improving. So make sure that we're reviewing that plan every year or however regular that you're looking to review it. We recommend annually so that it aligns with any new requirements that come in, but that's the important aspect. This process itself should follow a PDCA style cycle, so plan, do, check, act, and that's all about maintaining standards and aligning with government requirements. If you've got any questions, obviously pop us an email, drop us a message on LinkedIn. I'm going to whiz quickly through these next points because I noticed that I've been rambling quite a lot. Funding is that all important question, and how are you going to hit these targets if you're not able to actually get the funding that you guys need. With PSDS closed for new applications, we're actually waiting for some new government funding programs for public sector decarbonisation. We've got a couple on the screen. So the Scottish Public Sector Energy Efficiency Loan Scheme is a good one to look at. Greener Schools London. This is specifically London-based, and many other local authorities will be offering their own funding streams. But again, that varies region on region. There's also a school-based nursery capital grant, so 25-26. That funding back end of last year into this year is all about helping early years providers create or expand their buildings itself. So 150k is available for project needs if you meet those eligibility criteria as well. The final point's the SCA funding. So it's a funding scheme that's provided by the Department for Education, and it's typically multi-academy trusts that maintain their buildings, and there's no application process. You'll just be notified whether or not you meet the criteria, and that's going to be paid to responsible bodies, and they'll be able to distribute it to the schools that need it the most. The key point is engage with your local community and councils. And if you're looking to secure funding, of course, to help with your decarbonisation goals, engage with the community, engage with the council, and of course, contact us as we might be able to help you with your specific needs. To sort of summarise, it's important to understand the things that your school, university, nursery or academic trust needs to be aware of. So annual carbon reporting for eligible trusts is essential. Evidence of waste reductions and recycling systems, that's where simpler recycling comes into play. Making sure that you're complying with any water efficiency and Legionella requirements. That's a little bit more health and safety, but it's included as part of the sustainability broader conversation. Of course, Sustainable procurement considerations, these larger academic trusts, PPN 006, it's essential that we've got commitments from your supply chain to drive down their emissions as well. And of course, implementing a structured approach to reducing your environmental impact, building out your carbon reduction plan. It's a really good way to do that is to develop an environmental management system for each of your locations as well. So yeah, that's the closing sort of comments. What needs to be reported within your carbon action plan, commitment to net zero, annual scope 1 and 2 and selected scope 3 emissions, evidence of board level approval, and a summary of carbon reduction measures in place or ones that have been planned. We've talked quite a lot about compliance. I just want to touch on a couple of things that your schools, nurseries, colleges and universities can do to take a step in the direction of improving sustainability, just before I pass over to Astrid to talk about outcomes first and their journey as well. The biggest carbon and energy saving that we see typically is in that first section, energy and buildings. It's important to do a thorough assessment of all of your locations, and that will help you to identify some low-hanging fruit and improve your energy efficiency, of course, and drive down that carbon footprint. Installing LED lights, smart meters, improving your insulation, conducting that energy audit, using dashboards to track your consumption. Look at PV, if there's any installation opportunities that you can get solar panels through engagement partnerships, grant funding. That's a really good way that you can get some money back from the grid as well. And then of course, you can look to do student-led switch-off campaigns. If they notice any lights that have been switched, that have been left on in rooms, encourage your students to make sure that they're aware of these little things that can improve as well. Grounds and biodiversity, look to develop wildlife gardens, ponds, rewilding areas, student-led nature monitoring projects as well, bird counts, pollination surveys. That can be a really good way to not only improve the impact of your location, but they can really help to develop the awareness of staff as well. And then, of course, improving the waste and resources that you have at your location, whole school recycling, food waste programs, switching to reusable materials in classroom and canteens. When printing, implement a print light policy. If you're printing is going to be something that all schools will have to do, but it's important to do double-sided paper, and if you can, FSC sourced paper as well is a really good transition to make sure that you're reducing the impact of waste that you can have as well. That scope 3 conversation we had earlier, it can't be undervalued, and that's when we start looking a little bit closer at, of course, waste, installing low flow taps, water butts, monitoring leakage, encouraging active travel through, walking, buses, cycle to school days, improved bike storage. That's a really good way to drive down some of that impact that you might have with the travel aspect as well. And then, of course, with your procurement, making sure to choose eco-label products, prioritizing local suppliers, buying that FSC paper I mentioned before, and of course, consider lifestyle impacts of ICT equipment as well. Final point I want to touch on as well before I hand over to Astrid is looking at that curriculum and student leadership. So making sure to embed climate education across all subjects and establishing eco communities or committees would be a really good way to not only build up that knowledge base at each of the different locations, but also each of your classrooms. It really gives that student-led approach as well. And of course, link into your climate action plan as well. Speaking of which, community engagement is a really important aspect. So partnering with local councils, charities, environmental groups, and hosting sustainability fairs, repair cafes, community planting days, they're all great actions that we can look to do to improve the impact of not only your location, but the wider school and environmental impact of the education sector as well. Thank you for listening to me. I'm just going to pass over to Astrid to talk a little bit more about the outcomes first journey.
Thank you, Jamie. I think I'll start maybe with a quick introduction for Outcomes First Group. We are a leading education provider. We support over 6,500 children and young people across more than 100 schools, all aligned around the shared vision of building incredible futures through education that actually empowers individuals to thrive. We at OFG, or Outcomes First Group, we're broadly known as OFG, we are committed to making that meaningful impact, not just within our organization, but the world around us. And one of our strategic pillars as an organization is our decarbonization strategy. So a couple of years ago, we conducted a very comprehensive assessment to understand our environmental impact as a group. And since then, we've launched a series of initiatives to help us reduce it. Greenmark is one of the key initiatives that is supporting us in our journey. We were looking for something that could help us move to that central ambition into that consistent local action. And Greenmark actually gave us that practical framework to do that, providing us with that structure, accountability, and a very clear pathway for schools to engage with sustainability in a way that actually felt achievable and relevant to their own setting. I think what has been important is that it has helped us connect our wider organizational sustainability and decarbonization goals with the day-to-day activity on the ground. So rather than sustainability just sitting at that central level, Greenmark has helped us make it something that can be owned locally by schools, staff, and students. So for us, that combination of structure, flexibility, and engagement is what actually made Greenmark the right fit for us. I would say that this approach has allowed us not only to make progress in practical areas, such as, your energy, waste, biodiversity, and procurement, but also to build that internal capability, helping us understand how sustainability can be embedded effectively across a very diverse education portfolio, and how that local action was supporting our wider organizational goals. So overall, it has helped us build that model, I would say, balancing that environmental ambition with operational realities, which I think is particularly important in education settings where consistency, continuity, and also stakeholder engagement are all very critical. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Awesome, thank you. So I think our Greenmark journey in action, really. So in 2024, we officially launched the Greenmark program as, again, that practical way to embed sustainability across our schools. And since then, it has become that real catalyst for change. One of the strongest signs of that progress is that we've achieved 100% pass rate for schools in scope for 2024-2025 academic year, which was really an encouraging milestone for us. All of our participating sites have now appointed, Jamie referred to them as sustainability leads, but we internally call them green champions, and they've helped us turn that ambition into action. They're leading those local initiatives, sharing ideas, and really encouraging those more sustainable day-to-day behaviors across their school communities. And this growing network, I would say, of green champions is playing that key role in building momentum as well, and helping sustainability become part of that everyday practice. So today, 25 of our sites have achieved level 1 certification of Greenmark. We have 3 sites that have achieved level 2 certification, and we have a new cohort of schools now joining the program for this academic year. And I think what has been especially encouraging is the variety of ways that schools are bringing Greenmark to life. Again, in a way that it reflects their own setting and priorities. And I'll share some examples shortly. However, I think the relevance really comes in because it really shows how Greenmark is not just that badge that they are achieving, but is driving those practical actions across different parts of the school life and also estate management. So one of the examples that I would share is that, for instance, some of our schools have identified opportunities, to improve that awareness of energy saving behaviors. They've started introducing newsletters, visual prompts across the sites, and these actions are supported by eco councils formed by students, where they conduct like checklists. They even developed staff induction content and regular monitoring and progress sharing to keep that engagement high. Other sites, for instance, are taking action through more local environmental initiatives. So they've organized like little picking activities and wider community involvement. I think across all of the in-scope certified sites, sustainability is also being embedded into that decision making. It has also moved on to that area. We've also seen in some of our schools that they have even developed their own supplier code of conduct and procurement policy to start supporting more sustainable purchasing choices. And I think the final one that I would highlight is that students have been also involved in hands-on projects, like in relation to, for example, the biodiversity element of sustainability. We've seen that while they've embarked on this Green Mark journey, there has been developments in biodiversity projects that have had those hands-on learning experiences for the pupils. They've been creating like bird boxes and taking part in annual green up days, where they spent a lot of time outside lessons, planting herbs, fruits, trees, and wildflower across their sites. So just some illustrative examples of how this has been sort of like driven at the site level. But overall, I would summarize that Green Mark has really helped us build that stronger local ownership, and that the schools have been able to adapt that framework to reflect their own priorities, while they are still working towards that shared structure across the group. So that balance has been really valuable, because it means sustainability can be both consistent, but also locally meaningful, which was our ultimate goal. And if we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So if we look at the impact, I think that the program is really showing that, again, sustainability can be embedded at the site level in a very practical, visible and meaningful way. So we are seeing that across participating sites, this is really driving greater awareness, stronger ownership, and more engagement at local level. And of course, as a consequence of that, we are seeing the development of those site-specific climate action plans, which will support our compliance element and helping schools think more clearly about their priorities in how they can make that progress over time. So in a nutshell, I would say the program really helped sustainability become more embedded into daily operations, and that's really where we feel the long-term change it starts. So supporting not only that environmental improvement, but also stronger habits, better visibility, and that greater accountability across the organization. But the cherry on top, I would say, again, the most important is that it has provided the schools the framework to take action in a way that actually works for them, while also helping us to achieve, I would say, those wider sustainability ambitions as a group. So looking ahead, really our ambition is to continue to build on that momentum. And as shown here on the slide, we're working towards our first 3 sites to achieve level 3 certification of Green Mark, 25 sites that are already at level 1 to achieve that level 2. And then we're looking to 15 additional schools to join the program at level 1. So again, for us, Green Mark remains a very important part of our wider sustainability journey, because again, is helping us turn that sustainability, helping us to turn that vision from sustainability as a strategic ambition into something very practicable and achievable across our schools. Thank you.
That's really great. Thank you, Astrid. And hopefully it'll, for everyone in the call, it'll give some not only useful insights on some of the actions that we've suggested before like Astrid jumped in and talked about some of the actions that they've implemented in their actual locations across the entire portfolio. So it's really exciting to see that not only we've had a great relationship over the last couple of years, but we're looking to make sure that action-driven approach that's led by the sites themselves is it's a really key part of the Green Mark framework. But yeah, again, it's great to see that you're integrating sustainability in every aspect of your mission for continual improvement. I'll touch quickly on the Green Mark solution before we go to that Q&A section at the end. I just want to introduce you how adopting Green Mark and developing an environmental management system will help you guys to achieve compliance within this action-driven framework, and not only give you a better understanding of your impact, but helps to really contribute meaningfully to a sustainable future. A quick bit of background on Green Mark. We were developed from funding from the European Social Fund over a decade ago by a team of experts that wanted to make sustainable environmental accreditation accessible for everyone. So that's small businesses with a couple of employees all the way to international portfolio organizations. And we're a trusted partner for all sorts of energy intensive sectors. We work in the care sector, retirement villages, pub chains, offices, schools, nurseries, retail, manufacturing facilities, councils, you name it, we've worked there. And due to this really wide breadth of industry, it's really helped us to build a knowledge base about how small changes can really make a big difference on a large scale, as Astrid just mentioned. Green Mark itself, it's a site or location based accreditation that helps businesses to improve sustainability by developing a framework for an EMS or environmental management system. So in EMS, it's all about getting the right people in place, developing sustainable policies, and implementing procedures to reduce your environmental impact. This proven 3-step accreditation really helps you guys to deliver on those real-world practical solutions and develop that framework to create an action plan to achieve that net zero by 2050. That's a really core part of our goal. And of course, once you're certified, you'll achieve a Green Mark certification, which is a really good way, of course, to demonstrate your commitment to employees, clients, the students, competitors, and of course to yourselves that you're committed to sustainability. But yeah, in essence, we want to help you guys to develop policies and integrate these processes into your day-to-day operation to improve on sustainability. I won't stick on this for too long, but it's important to sort of note that the Green Mark journey itself, we're all about developing and we're constantly growing and aligning with frameworks and procurement needs as well. So kind of the two main points to mention on are looking at aligning with some of the new procurement requirements across the UK, thinking about tracking your emissions, and of course that journey is the most important aspect for us as well. So something from a local authority project that we've delivered in Sutton, so in South London. We helped about 100 or so organisations to achieve Green Mark certification. 90% of businesses were actually, not aware of all aspects of their environmental impacts. So less than 15% of them had any sort of tracking in place for looking at their utilities and waste. As a sort of quick example, everyone wants to do the right thing, and they were committed, and they are committed to driving down their carbon footprint. But it's just that awareness piece and getting that first step in place to really look to improve overall impact. So yeah, it's all about your people and engagement. So what we do is we look to create a positive behavioural change where your teams are excited about sustainability. It implements change at a site level, and we help, as I said, organisations of all sorts and at shapes and sizes, from single locations to portfolios of over 100. And this process itself is via our online portal, which is really user friendly, and it essentially means that you guys can log in and complete and access it at your own time. And we know that teachers have a very difficult time finding time in their day, so it's important that we want to make it as accessible as possible at that site level. There's lots of support in the form of documents, templates, guidance notes, and there's actually a help guide within the platform itself that's specific to each of the questions that are asked. And of course, we've got a team of environmental advisors that are available over the phone, video, or email that are accessible at any time you need us. As you can see, subscriptions start annually at £350 per year. So at that low cost alternative, it's really important to think about, if you're looking for something to support your environmental credentials, it's quite useful to have something that's a little bit more accessible. Typically, businesses start out at level 1 in their first year and then move to level 2 in their second year and then level 3 in their third year. We've already discussed, Astrid's already got a few of her locations at that level 3 mark, which is really exciting to see. But that first step at level 1, it's all about building awareness, starting out and identifying actions. Some of the sort of key areas in scope at level 1 are looking at your utilities, waste and the impact on that local environment. And the main thing that we look to do is encourage businesses to understand the impact that they have on the environment, look at your schools themselves, understand the impact that you have on the environment, and really look to identify some of these key actions and put that into an action plan. At level 1, again, it's very much that formative stage, identifying, setting some targets, and we'd expect to see some of these targets formalized into that action plan, looking initially at your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, the direct impact that you have on your site. At level 2, it's all about developing on the opportunities identified at level 1. So you've identified that baseline, you've set out a few actions, and we really look to try and build on the foundations that were created at level 1, and we'd expect to see progress towards the actions that were identified in your previous year's submission action plan. And then, of course, developing the action plan itself to align with some of the education requirements. So making sure that we've got persons responsible aligned next to the different actions and making sure that the site leads themselves, they've got ownership of their action plan for their specific site. We also expand the scope of the assessment as well to include both travel and procurement, as they're pretty key environmental factors that should be considered. And we'd expect as well the action plan itself to start developing, and there needs to be comments based on the progress that you guys have made year on year. All this support's in place as well. We've got lots of different templates. The advisors are on hand to help out with any progress towards actions that were identified the previous year. If you're not quite able to achieve the actions identified, we don't want to say you're not going to be compliant, you're not going to achieve certification. We want to reevaluate and set new realistic targets as well. And then finally, at level 3, it's all about championing and maintaining a high level of sustainability and, of course, implementing that full EMS. So once you progress to level 3, we see organisations that have clear understanding of all aspects of their environmental impact and clear processes in place where they can review and update their pretty comprehensive documentation at this point. And at level 3, we're actually considered an alternative to an ISO 14001, and that's by local authorities, procurement frameworks, including the NHS, SPS as well. So when you're looking to comply with some of your regulatory needs, and if you're looking to go for an ISO 14001 alternative, it's essential that you align with a program that will work for you. So that's everything from the green mark side of things. But yeah, by adopting a framework that develops an environmental management system, we can all better understand our impact, reduce it, and contribute meaningfully to a sustainable future. So together, we're making sure that we're not just meeting our targets, but we're really creating that cultural shift to improve our sustainability as a whole. So thank you, of course, all for joining us. We've got some time at the end for questions as well. I'm just tabbing across now to have a little look at the Q&A tab. So give me just 1 minute while we go through that. David, are you able to read out a couple of the questions?
Absolutely. And if anybody can't stay on past now, don't worry. We'll follow up with answers to the questions after as well. We've had 3 specific questions come in, all from Dean Holden. The first one is, when is Scope 3 expected to be in place?
I can jump on that one first and foremost. So there's a few different requirement needs that are coming out. So I think the important thing with Scope 3, it's not a requirement currently, but it's something that's coming around the corner. So, for example, the NHS, they have certain requirements where organisations need to pledge to net zero. So they need to have an understanding of all aspects of their environmental impact. So what we're seeing in the NHS, that's reflected in the private sector within the sort of care side of things as well. So NHS trusts, that's coming in. Depending on the size of your organization, you also need to start mapping your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So Dean, if you get in touch with us, we can help you to understand whether or not your compliance needs are being met currently. But if we're talking about everyone, scope 3 emissions, we've not got a strict deadline for when they need to be included that I'm aware of. Of course, Astrid, and if you've got some more up-to-date knowledge on that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, Jamie. It's not mandatory at the moment. It's just scopes 1 and 2, what are usually required to be reported. I'm sure that may change in 2027 when the UK sustainability disclosure standards come into force. But as far as I'm aware, there is a transition phase as well, so it's not expected immediately.
Suffice to say, it's probably coming, so keep an eye on
Yes.
it. Second question. So these requirements are very mainstream, and it's a struggle to find SEND inclusive programs. Is this something that Greenmark considers?
So I think the oh yeah,
sorry,
thank you.
Please do. Well, I would look at it from sort of like our perspective, and I think that's a really important point, and it's something that we've been very mindful of at OFG, given the needs of the pupils we support. And I think one of the strengths of Greenmark, and please, Jamie, you could add into that, is that from our perspective, at least, it provides really a very flexible framework rather than a one-size-fits-all program. And that flexibility is really important in SEND settings where the engagement approaches often really need to be adapted to different communication needs, learning styles, and even levels of accessibility. So I would say that what we've seen across our schools is that sustainability activities being tailored to pupils and sometimes even led by them, whether that's more sort of like a hands-on sensory-based activity, smaller group engagement, or linking sustainability to even life skills and real-world experiences rather than the more traditional classroom-based approach. So I think while Greenmark itself sets the structure expectations, the way it is delivered at a site level can definitely be adapted to be much more inclusive and meaningful for SEND pupils. And I would say there's still, of course, opportunities more broadly to continue to strengthen that SEND-specific guidance within sustainability programs. I'm not only referring to Greenmark, really, but I would say the flexibility within Greenmark has allowed us to make it work in a way that is appropriate for our settings.
Amazing. Is there anything further that you'd like to add there, Jamie?
No, it was that you've summed up it incredibly well. The point was the flexibility, and you've taken the words out of my mouth. Thank you, Astrid.
Then the final question before we close the session is: what are the key dates set out for compliance leading up to the 2050 deadline?
I think so that probably ties in a little bit with the comment from earlier. 2027, we're expected to see some updates to some of these milestones. As of right now, I'll share some information. I'll do a bit more digging, but as of right now, it's scope 1 and scope 2 as a baseline that you're going to need to do. Right now, scope 3, that's the next step, and we've not got a strict date on that yet.
Fantastic. Right, well, if there's no more questions, we have overrun typically. So I want to say a big thank you to Astrid and to Jamie for taking the time to share their knowledge today. It's really more important than ever that we reduce down our carbon footprint, especially in the political landscape that we live in today. In current times, we're seeing bills rise and budgets being squeezed, and these deadlines for net zero are going to come rushing up faster than you really think they will. So please do reach out to the team. We will send a follow-up after this session with a video, and I will follow up with Dean as well specifically. Thank you so much for those questions. And and we will see you at the next one. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.